some. We're going to go ahead and get started because there are some people watching this at their desk or maybe in a patrol car, who knows, and want to go ahead and give an opportunity to answer as many questions as I can. Thank you so much for coming in. I see this is very much like church and that there is nobody up front. You'll be happy to know, unlike church, we will not be passing a plate today. It seems as though everywhere I've gone over the last 2 months, people have been wondering whether or not I was going to pass the hat, whatever group I was speaking to. But as I told the mayor and council Monday night when I released the budget, we did pretty much look behind every seat cushion in the house, and not only that, we picked up the furniture and turned it upside down 2 or 3 times to try to come up with all the different creative ideas that we could to balance this budget in a way that shares across all the different entities, that's fair and respectful to you as city employees, that's respectful to taxpayers, that's respectful to people who depend on the services that we provide. And of course, there is literally a constituency for anything that we do. I know I'm going to be asked a lot over the next month, can't you cut more? Can't we reduce more services? And I keep asking the question, what service are we providing that doesn't provide value in the community? What service are we providing that people do not want? If people can tell me the answer to that question, we'll stop doing that service right now. I mean, why in the world would we be doing it? Why in the world would we have expenses in our budget that aren't necessary in order to provide the level of service that people want? But that's part of the democratic process. I've been through a lot of budgets in my career, and so I know what to expect. And it's really important to remain calm, to listen, to be thoughtful, and to respond to people and help them understand. And so one of the things I would ask of you as city staff is to become as knowledgeable as you can about the budget and the different aspects of it, not just your part in your program, but the full budget, so that as you're out and about in the community, you're at the gym or you're at the Little League or you're at church or wherever, and people ask you as a city employee, well, what is going on in this tax thing? That you can give them an informed answer, because you are ambassadors of the city, and your network of people that you interact with in the community are people who trust you. And when they hear it from you and hear it in your words in ways that they can understand and that listens and is respectful to the questions they ask, it can help people understand, because there will be a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation. I got an inquiry last night from an elected official in another part of government, not city, that had several facts wrong about one aspect of our budget. And so, I took time to, walk the person through it and correct it. And the more that you can do that as you're out and about with people, the better it will be. And so this is an opportunity for me to answer your questions so that you're not confused, because it is a complicated budget. It is the most complicated budget I have ever worked with, and this November will be my 40th anniversary in local government. So let's jump in and see what your questions are. A lot of them came in, and they're a little bit different order than what I had them on the sheet. So I'm going to do them off the PowerPoint here. Has the city taken any action to identify those responsible for the shortfall? Let's get those guys. All right, we really have gone into this budget not focusing on blame. Blame is really just not helpful. And so the source of our problem is twofold, and neither of them are our making. So nobody in city government is responsible for any of this, but we in city government have to deal with it. So one is, of course, the revaluation of the reevaluation. So when the 2011 revaluation of property was done, as we all know, it wasn't done accurately, and the General Assembly required another revaluation of the revaluation, and that revaluation resulted in further decreases in the value of property. Now, unfortunately, some of the most complicated and high-value properties were done at the very end, and they were the ones that had the biggest mistakes in them. And so we got hit in January with this information from the county tax assessor's office and their independent contractor who's doing this work. That caught everybody by surprise. Overall values in the city, mostly commercial, some really big commercial properties involved, dropped $2 billion. That's a lot. And so that ended up adversely affecting our budget, our general fund, about $10 million. The other one, which was a really huge impact, was the General Assembly's decision last year to eliminate business privilege license tax. It's basically a tax on gross receipts for businesses that cities in North Carolina had access to. All the cities did it differently. I have to tell you, it was a very confusing tax that did need to be reformed. But rather than reforming it, the General Assembly just cut it out and said cities cannot do this anymore. And that gave businesses in Charlotte an $18 million tax break. So our budget this year started with an $18 million tax break for businesses, and then the revaluation, which is another $10 million. So, you know, I could whine about it, I could rant and rave about it, but at the end of the day, we just have to fix it. And so that's what we've tried to do. All right. Next question. I know someone who has been given a conditional offer of employment, but the job is now frozen. Is the job offer still good, or is this position now eliminated due to budget cuts? The direct answer to this specific question is I don't know. We froze temporarily a lot of positions when we found out about the revaluation to give us some flexibility in case we had to reduce the budget by affecting positions that people were in. And so my goal going into this budget was no employee layoffs. The budget which I recommended Monday night has no employee layoffs. In fact, does it not only have no employee layoffs, it has no employees disrupted from their jobs. So what we were looking to do is create capacity if we needed to go deeper into the cuts. Now at this point, my recommendations are only that, they are recommendations. And so whether or not the city council will require deeper cuts, I just do not know. But until we get to the end of the process and know what the situation is, we need to have as much capacity as possible by holding positions open so that any employee that may be affected by a service reduction has an opportunity to stay employed with the city. Again, my goal is to have no involuntary layoffs across our city workforce, and thus far we are still at that place. And so with regard to conditional offers that were made, you really need to go and work with your supervisor to determine whether or not this was a position that was unfrozen, that we did authorize some that were critical to go forward, or is one that's being held now until the end of the process. Overall, you have probably heard we've eliminated 100 positions as a part of our budget balancing. Most of those were frozen back during the recession and had not been filled for a long time. 35 of them, roughly, are current funded positions that would not go into the current year. But they're vacant, or people in them are near retirement. Again, not something that will disrupt anybody's current job. All right. Is there a list of all frozen and vacant positions that will be eliminated? Yes. And the ones that are frozen, I don't know if we listed all of those specifically in the budget or not, but you can get those within your individual department. The positions that are vacant that would be eliminated are actually in the budget itself. There's an itemization of all the service reductions. Do you believe the city can offer the same level quality of service without filling the vacant positions? Well, not 100%, no. I think there will be some impacts on services, clearly. I don't think we had 35 positions that were not necessary. I think all of those positions were created for a purpose and to provide certain level of productivity. Will it have a dramatic visible effect on services in the community at this level of reduction of 35 out of 7,000 positions? No, I don't think that it will. But will different ones of us have to pick up and do a little bit more? Will some things perhaps be a little bit slower? Yes, they will. You don't eliminate capacity without reducing capacity. If an employee retires or leaves the city, will the department be able to fill the vacant position? Unless it's part of the reduction, and unless the city council requires us to go deeper in our reductions, then my expectation is that once the budget is adopted, we can go forward and fill all of the vacant positions that we have that are not affected. The idea is to start the fiscal year with a reset and then continue forward doing business as we need to do business. So the vacancies that are being held are not intended to continue into the fiscal year. We need to either fish or cut bait. Let's reduce what we need to reduce, and then let's get on with doing the business of the city. How does the city determine which vacant positions are considered critical need? That's a negotiation between the departments and HR and the assistant city managers. The departments make that initial determination of which positions they think have to be filled right now. Otherwise, we'll have critical unmet needs, and then they talk with their respective assistant city managers and make a determination which ones to go forward or not. What is the likelihood of an early retirement incentive program as a means to address the budget shortfall? Slim to none. I know that's discouraging to some of you very close to retirement. I'm willing, I'll go. No. This strategy doesn't work very well. If you do an early retirement program and you open it up to everybody, then you end up losing positions that you have to have, and then you just have to turn around and fill them, and the only thing that you save might be the difference between the long-tenured employee and the new employee, and it gets you ultimately marginal amounts of money. If we had to go deeper and were to look at this strategy, it'd be on a very targeted basis. And so if we're looking to, say, reduce Service A, then we'd look at the staff in Service A, and as a strategy to help people keep from losing their jobs, we might look at a very targeted retirement incentive program. At this point, we don't need to do that. But if we need to go deeper, we might. What impact does the recommended budget have on the existing community investment plan projects and capital? None. We have tried very hard to preserve the community investment program. Voters went to the polls last fall, voted to approve the bonds. Previous councils had approved tax rate to support the community investment. Our strategy and our philosophy in developing this budget has been to meet our short-term, immediate financial challenge without sacrificing our future. Our community investment program is designed as an investment program. What we want to do is to build the public infrastructure that encourages the private sector to invest in our city and to build more housing and more offices and more retail that generates more resources for us in the future. And so we've tried to take the long view in all that we've evaluated. Why is the 1.5% raise proposed? I appreciate the consideration, but I thought the expectation was there wouldn't be any raises in light of proposed cuts. I pretty much messaged that at the beginning. I did not know when we started looking at roughly a $22 million shortfall whether or not we really could do anything with regard to pay this year. But that didn't mean that I didn't want to do something on pay, and it didn't mean that we shouldn't do something on pay. And so the idea, again, is trying to balance across all the different sectors who contributes and in what way to meeting our objective. And so doing pay increases with tax increases is admittedly challenging, as you can well understand, But as I told the city council in the workshop, I don't think the budget should be balanced on the backs of employees. I don't think it should be balanced on the backs of residential taxpayers either. Again, the cuts have gone to businesses, and so we've tried to do this in a very balanced way. So the market trend suggests that we really should be at 3%, and I would really like to be at 3%. And if we hadn't lost the revenues that we had, I think we could be something much closer to 3%. But 1.5%, I think, is fair and right, and I'll work very hard at the City Council to get that approved. How will we address the increasing insurance cost? Well, this is also a particular concern to us going in. One of the things, in addition to not wanting any employees to lose their jobs, was not have any employees go home with less money in their paycheck. And so we never entertain any actual salary reductions, but you can also go home with less money because of higher cost of benefits. And we set an objective of trying to make sure that that would not happen. Our cost of health care, as all of you know, is shared between the city and the employees, and health care is going up everywhere because of cost containment, because of all of you that are involved in the wellness parts of our health program and are working very hard to be healthy. I'm even trying, and I'm not even in the city's health care plan. We all just need to be healthier. And you're doing that, and it's making an impact. And so our rates this year are only going up about 4%. And a lot of people are going to see much higher rate increases. But we still wanted to contain costs for employees. And so what we have done for our core healthcare program with the wellness component, there are no increases. We're keeping those rates flat for all levels, whether it's single coverage or family coverage. If you're in that core city healthcare plan with the wellness component, you won't pay a dime more next year. And for the basic dental program, you won't pay more either. Now, if you choose the optional wellness program, you'll get to choose. So if you're not in the core program now and you want to go to it, you can do it. If you're in the optional program, we are passing on the 4% to employees, and the city's picking up its share of the 4%. But with our 1.5% adjustment, no employee should go home with less pay if you're in the optional wellness program. Now, if you're in the optional program without the wellness component and you have a family plan, unless you make over $62,000 a year, you're going to go home with less pay. But we really need to not have anybody in the non-wellness programs. And on the optional programs, we're actually going to close new entrants into that program. New hires will only have the choice of the core program that we're trying to keep affordable for all employees. How will the city address morale issues that may be the result of the recommended budget actions? Well, I think there's a lot that we've got to do on morale issues. I've been looking at this question really hard. I think we do have some morale challenges coming out of the recession. We haven't kept up with pay. And what I'm seeing based on some work that we're doing is that pay is a real concern for employees. It's interesting, employees make a real difference between their perceptions on pay and their perceptions on benefits. Employees think our benefits are actually pretty good, but people are really concerned that we've not kept up with the market on pay. And that's why I felt I had to make a pay recommendation in this budget. But there's some other things that we need to do as well. The connection between pay and performance is not as strong as it probably should be. We're not doing as well as we should in dealing with low-performing employees. We're not doing as well as we should be in recognizing high-performing employees. I think we're probably not doing as well as we need to in engaging employees and involving you in ideas and decision-making. And these are all areas that I'm looking at to try to get a new focus on as we go into the new fiscal year. But ultimately, morale, or more specifically, motivation, is self-directed. It's done within ourselves. And the thing that we are seeing is that people who work for the city really like their jobs. And we really like our jobs because our jobs matter. We get an opportunity to make a difference in this community and making it a great place. And there is no job in city government that does not play a valuable and important role in making this the great city that it is. And that's where the real inspiration comes from, is what we're able to do. And our job as managers and executives is to give you the tools that you need and empower you to do that. And I think that we will see, and as we have seen, people will do the best that they can do because they know that it matters. It's important to us individually. Does the budget situation impact raises that have improved this past year? No. Again, there are no pay reductions. People who have anniversary dates coming up right in this period of time, they're advancing. None of that is frozen. How should contract and temporary employees prepare for budget impacts? That one, as well, is very specific to individual programs and departments, and so there's no broad generic answer on that one. And so if you have a question in this area, I encourage you to go to your supervisor or someone in your department and ask about the area that is of specific concern to you. There was no generic across-the-board impact in this regard. All right, time to wet my whistle a little bit. And I know I'm going fast, but there's a ton of questions, and people took the time to send them in, so I want to try to take the time to answer them. Actually, our delinquencies are, it is a lot of money, but it's not terrible. Our collection rate is up to what now?
10-year average is over 98%.
Yeah, 10-year average over 98%. That's pretty good. Hopefully they'll get to 99, maybe 99.9, but I can't slam the tax collector on this one. And I won't slam the tax collector on anything else either. Charlotte is seeing a tremendous amount of real estate growth in high-density apartment complexes. Will these new bills impact or ease the current revenue loss from tax reval? Yeah, they really will. The apartments that are under construction, especially in South End and in Uptown, they're great money generators. They mostly attract single young people who don't use any services, that go out and drink a lot and eat at restaurants, don't own cars, and they're the demographic we want to attract. That's our future. Is getting the new young professionals in this community to give us youth and vibrancy and to replace old folks like me, and I don't consider myself an old folk actually. You only get old when you think of yourself old. And I knew a woman, I didn't meet her until she was in her early 90s. She's the youngest person I've ever known in my life. And so the memory of her inspires me every day as I get older. But we need young people. And these apartments are really targeted to young professionals, young couples, and they are your best return on investment. So yeah, I love seeing all this new residential going up. It's awesome. Will the city consider eliminating the take-home vehicle option? That's a complicated one. We put that on a list of things to look at in the next fiscal year. So we had a bunch of good ideas. We couldn't chase all of them down as a part of this budget process, but this one's on the list to examine more thoughtfully in FY16. Has the county implemented any measures to improve the valuation or accounting process to be more accurate? Right now, they're installing some new software, a new system for evaluation. I don't know a lot of the details, but the mayor and council have had a lot of conversations with this. I've talked with the county manager about it. We're going to pursue continuing conversations with the county on how the revaluations can be done on a quicker schedule. This 8-year gap between reevaluation is really challenging, and it's too big a gap. We're not keeping current with increasing values in our community, and even if we do a reevaluation and we lower the tax rate because the values are higher, people are at least paying taxes on the real value of their home. So I understand this is a real challenge in North Carolina. My wife and I have some property we bought several years ago up in Currituck County, and this is where I first ran into this 8-year revaluation thing. For 4 years, we were paying taxes probably double the value of our home because it had been valued at a very high point in the market, which is not where we bought it. And then it continued to slide, but we were still paying on taxes on a value much higher than what we own. That's happening in Charlotte too. That's happened across North Carolina. We need more rapid revaluation so that we have a fairer system, and I'm hoping there's a way that the county can find to do that. Budget recommendations on enterprise funds. The problem that we've had to solve for this year has been in the general fund, not in the enterprise funds. Enterprise funds have their own challenges because they receive dedicated revenue streams from a variety of different sources, and they're different, whether it's aviation or CATS or Charlotte Water or Stormwater. Who did I leave out? Got everybody? Okay, good. I hate leaving anybody out. And so they'll all have different funding streams. And so we've got different issues in every one of them. CATS is probably the most stable right now after having some really hard times during the recession when sales tax went down, but CATS is fairly stable right now. Aviation is a victim of phenomenal success. The airport continues to grow. It continued to grow during the recession, and so right now the airport is in a catch-up mode, really being able to provide the level of accommodations that are needed for the airlines and all their passengers. So their budget is up really quite significantly. Stormwater has a couple of different issues. One, we've got more work out there than we have enough money to do. We have a lot more work out there in stormwater than we have the money to do, and we have this very odd situation. You see in stormwater, operating it as a utility with a fee, one of the things you want your fee to do is to be supportive of your policy objectives. And one of the policy objectives is not to pave over all the property, but to have open areas where when it rains, the stormwater can actually percolate and go in the ground and be filtered and not run off asphalt and concrete and all into the streams and pollute our water. And so the fee structure should, if anything, provide a disincentive to pave over everything. Well, our current structure, oddly enough, gives you a break if you have more impervious surface. Seriously. And so we have made a recommendation, and this is probably the most controversial recommendation, I think, in the budget, is to adjust our stormwater rates so that whatever level of impervious surface you have, you're paying the same per square foot rate. You're not getting an incentive to have more impervious surface. But that's a big hike for people that have a lot of pavement and super big houses. But it also generates money to begin to attack the backlog of projects. And that's going to be a challenging policy question for the council, how much to raise the rate in order to fund more of the projects that people want. And that's just a straight up policy decision. That's the one they're going to have to wrestle with. Charlotte Water, that one is also interesting. The rate increases there are actually quite modest given overall inflation. The Charlotte Water has worked really hard to keep the rates down. The people that are going here, this is a paradox, unlike my last one. The paradox here is people that use the least water actually will see an increase because we've been subsidizing people who use the least water in a way that's not needs-based. So you can be a millionaire, single person living in a townhouse, not using much water, and you pay a subsidized rate. You can be a low-income family of 4, renting a house, needing water, and paying more. And so the subsidy was intended as a lifeline rate, but it's not really targeted specifically to the people who need it. It's an inefficient way to actually provide support to people who need it. And so we are recommending the elimination of that lowest tier rate so that it would actually recover the cost of providing water to low water users. That one would be probably a little bit controversial too. What specific energy saving methods is the city considering? That's a really complicated question, and so I'm going to ask Hung Yi on my staff and Rob Focus, our environmental person, to work up something that we can communicate out to employees. We're trying really hard to get our heads wrapped around some goals and objectives. We're doing pretty good, but I think we can drive energy consumption even lower in the city. We are proposing a change in 311 hours. Holiday and weekend coverage would be eliminated. I think this will actually be positive for some of our 311 workers. The targeted date at this point, I think is probably July 1, but we'll be working through the details of that and have to do some messaging out to the public so they're aware. There will still be access for emergency needs, of course, public safety, 911, and there's a number for emergency water sewer issues. So it doesn't mean that if you have a real crisis in the weekend or in the middle of the night, you won't have access. Will the city cut back on ordering new uniforms? This one I also cannot answer in the specific. Different departments have different policies on uniforms. All departments took some reductions on various expense items. Which departments did so in uniforms and what impact that would have on uniforms is a question better asked of your individual department. We consider reducing the frequency of trash and recycling collection. Not at this point. Reducing the frequency of trash collection is a little bit problematic in a southern city, if you know what I'm talking about. But we have discussed it partially in the context of doing recycling on a bi-weekly basis. I believe that we could drive our recycling numbers up and our solid waste numbers down if we could do recycling on a weekly basis, but exactly how to do that and do so in a cost-effective way as part of a continuing study that we'll be looking at into the new fiscal year. Have we been asked, the City Council been asked to implement measures to reduce their cost? Yes, actually, they have reduced the cost for their retreat next year. They've cut their travel budget. They're actually pretty good reductions in City Council. I think they stepped up and saw that it was important for them to show leadership in this area as well. Are there other streams of income that the city is investing other than facility sale lease scenarios? I would say nothing major. Part of our constraint is state law. North Carolina is what's known as a Dillon rule state. Who the heck is Dillon? Well, it's not Bob Dylan. He had nothing to do with it. It's Judge Dillon, D-I-L-L-O-N, who was in Ohio in the mid-1850s. What the heck does he have to do with our revenue streams in Charlotte in 2015? Well, he is the person who opined, he's an expert in municipal law, he opined that local governments only have the power that the states give them. And that has become the cornerstone of municipal law in the United States. Some states give local governments a lot of independent authority to pretty much do what they want to do, except what the state says you can't do, and that's known as home rule. Other states, however, do exactly the opposite. Local government cannot do anything unless the state says you can do it. You have to have permission for everything. And North Carolina is one of the stronger, that's called a Dillon rule state, and North Carolina is one of the stronger Dillon rule states. That is how the General Assembly last year could just simply say, cities, you're not going to do business license tax anymore. There were proposals put in this year to take local sales tax, make it a state tax, and then distribute it on a different formula. They can do that. There were bills this year to change the election cycles in some local governments. There was a bill to change the makeup of the Greensboro City Council and the Durham County Commission. And so all of that is perfectly legal. And so what we can do in terms of looking at additional funding streams is highly constrained by what the state specifically says North Carolina cities, or Charlotte in particular, can and cannot do. And that's all the history I know, by the way. Will the city of Charlotte receive any of the $20 million from the federal government for body cameras? It doesn't look like it. From what I can tell, that money's really targeted to smaller police departments and departments that are more economically challenged than Charlotte is. It'd be great if they would, though. It's really a great thing for policing. That's the last question. Woo! All right. All right. So how long did we schedule this for?
An hour.
An hour. Okay.
20 minutes.
All right. So the microphones are now open. So if you have questions here in the room, please feel free to come up and ask. Except for the budget staff. And would the budget staff stand up and be recognized? They've done an absolutely fabulous job this year. All stand up. One of the things I talked about at the beginning of this budget process, and I'm giving you time to, there's some people pass note cards in for questions too? If we have any of those, people can pass them in, and you can do it from the note card. You don't have to come up to the, if you've got a really embarrassing question, you can write it down and someone else will read it. And so one of the things I talked about at the beginning of this process is a notion of luck, because I felt like we had some really bad luck. And so you can do a couple of things when you run into bad luck. You can whine about it and get depressed, or you can use it as an opportunity. And there's this guy named Jim Collins who has studied excellence in the private sector. He also has a really good book, Good to Great in the Social Sector. It's a little red book, and you can get it for like 1 cent on Amazon or at the public library. It's a really great read, Good to Great in the social sectors. But he's done a lot of work in the private sector, and he looked at companies that were doing really well about a decade ago, and not all of them did great, coming through the recession. And so his question was, well, why did some companies that were really great succeed and others did not? And so he thought, well, maybe it's luck. Maybe those that did well had good luck, and those that didn't have bad luck. And so his researchers actually operationally defined luck and tested that theory. And they found that among companies that succeeded and those that didn't, they had about the same amount of good luck and bad luck. He said the difference was that whether or not you had good luck or bad luck is what you did with it. And the really good companies, when they had good luck, they exploited it. They really took advantage of it. They had the plans laid, and they were ready to run. And he said, likewise, when companies had bad luck, they stepped back, they really focused on what was important. They used it as an opportunity to refocus themselves and to build for the future by taking not short-term views, but long-term views. And he said, in the end, what is important is not luck, but resilience. Do you have the ability to face challenges and deal with them? And that's been a big motivation for me and our team as we've gone forward. This is a challenge that we can deal with. When you're faced with a $22 million gap, it sort of feels like the glass is half empty, right? The $22 million is about 4% of our budget. What does that mean? That means the glass is 96% full. And so the challenge for us is not just how do we make up that 4%, but how do we make sure that 96% we use as well as we can, that we do the best that we can with that 96% to meet the needs of this city. All right, so we got a question coming in here.
Is the state still looking at redistributing the sales tax?
What the General Assembly may do in any session, any time, is impossible to predict. Totally impossible to predict. Because the way their system is structured, even when you think things are dead, they're not necessarily. They can bring things back literally until the day they adjourn. The best intel that I have at this point is that they probably will not do anything on sales tax. but who knows? Who knows? You can't sit around and worry about it. Again, whatever they do, we'll face and deal with. But all of the ideas that I come forward within the General Assembly have so many negative impacts on so many cities. I think they're really hesitant to go down that path because they just don't know what all the unintended consequences are.
Okay, will the proposed increase in the property tax rate also impact taxes on vehicles and personal property, not just real property? If so, how much revenue is generated from this?
The tax rate does apply to all property. It's a single tax rate across real and personal and business property. Randy, do you have, Eric?
That portion of that, I don't know off the top of my head what that component is.
Yeah, it does have some positive impact. We have a pie chart in the slide presentation that shows all the different components that went into balancing the budget, our expense reductions, our service reductions, the conversion of the solid waste fee, the revenue neutral tax rate, the shift of some things from capital to operating, the shift from some things from operating to tourism. I mean, it's about a dozen different categories, all of which form different pieces of the puzzle to give us that whole picture, and that is one of them.
Okay, have city and county executives discussed any opportunities to partner together or consolidate internal needs and or services in order to realize economies of scale, which might help both our entities during this challenging time?
The time frame in which we had to deal with these immediate issues did not provide a lot of opportunity to do that. The collaboration that we're most engaged with the county on right now is on our on development processes, plans and permitting. We have some challenges in that area. We're fragmented. Even within the city, it's 4 or 5 different departments that have a role in zoning and permitting. And so we're at risk of delaying development and delaying investment and delaying taxes being paid on that investment. And so our highest priority with the county right now is an integrated effort to try to really understand our process, to streamline our process, to make it more efficient so that in this up economy, people who want to invest in Charlotte can invest in Charlotte and can do so very efficiently. We will be looking in the coming year at a number of the interlocal agreements. The council has had some discussion of that and empowered me to engage with the county. Some of them are quite old. Life has changed over the decades. I don't know what may come out of that. Again, I would say the area of fragmentation that is of most concern right now is in the business services area, though.
That's it.
That's all the questions. All right, anybody? All right. Yes, sir.
Comment is, I appreciate the budget on the backs of the city workers. Because, previous city managers, the first thing they did was no raises and looking how to cut. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. We all work in different environments and with different elected officials, and so we have to, as managers, approach things based on the environment within which we are. I think the budget that I've put forward is one that is consistent with the policies of the City Council. That's obviously what drives all that we do. We can only do what we're empowered to do by the City Council. And so I hope that they will support the 1.5. And as you have an opportunity to interact with council, and a lot of you see them all over the place and around, please, be friendly to them, speak to them, share your thoughts and ideas, because all of us are working toward the same end, and that is to make Charlotte the best city that it possibly can be, a great city to call home. Thank you very much for joining me this morning.